come forward. We have a chair for you over here, and a mic and some pads in case you guys want to take some notes. I have some other officials. Hi, thanks for coming. We have some other officials from the district attorney's office coming over also as well. Someone mentioned that we could have used the bigger room, but I was told the bigger room at the time was not available. There was some classes going on over there, and of course this was very important, but thanks to Skip Delano, he brought it to my attention that we should have a town hall meeting to address the activities that were going on in the community as of last Wednesday when we have police activity doing the gang sweep, and they'll explain more in detail what went on with that. The concern about this meeting is to bring questions about where we at, what future lies, what lies in the future of our community by this cleanup. All right, and you can have whatever questions you have to the panel up here, city officials. They'll give you the best response they have, any information that we have, just to bring some kind of comfort to this community that there are things being done in the community. We're taking part of their 2-6 council meeting, the monthly council meeting. We're part of it. Some shareholders join that council meeting every month. I really encourage every Morningside Gardens resident to read the flyers that we put out there, that they put out there, so that you can go in and take part and listen to everything that's going on in this community. There's a whole lot going on in this community, very positive stuff, and I think, like I mentioned, this is just the peak of the iceberg on taking our community back. We're not going to let these guys take over our community, run around doing their shootings and injuring people. No. Police department is on top of it. We help them by providing excellent video footage on from our equipment that we have here, and they do the same with other communities. Columbia is also involved with that. Public safety is all over it, working together with the police department, district attorney's office, and every law enforcement agency out there to bring quality to this community and maintain a quality of life. That's the main focus. So without further ado, we have here Deputy Inspector Stephen Griffith of the 2-6 Precinct, who joins with Sergeant Hodges. Is that correct? All right. And that's it.
No, I like to speak.
Okay.
Sometimes people say I got a big mouth, so hey. I'm glad to be here. Morningside Gardens, beautiful place. Sometimes I get to walk around the courtyard. A lot of people that care about their community. So I'm sure everybody knows, I've had people, family members call me down the stage. The biggest takedown in NYPD's history is in regards to gang members. And I'm sure if you live in this community, I've been here for going on 2 years. Many of you guys have been here for a lot longer. There has been a problem. There's been a problem with grand houses in Manhattanville. And this goes back decades. I've been educated since I've been here. But the last recent years, there's really been an uptick in violence, and the type of violence, where it might have been a couple of fisticuffs, maybe a stabbing that's turned into shootings. So NYPD knew we needed to do something about that. We needed to make sure that we keep everyone safe in public housing and surrounding developments in our neighborhoods. So they embarked on ambitious investigations with the gang unit, and they were able to do great work. And the results, 103 people were indicted. That is a large number, 103 people. And the type of charges they were indicted on, these are serious charges. 86 of them, conspiracy to commit murder. This is serious crimes they were talking about. What these kids were involved in and what they wanted to do. We couldn't allow them to do. We're not gonna let anyone take over any community and do what they feel they want to do. So great work was done, great cooperation by New York City Police Department, Department of Corrections, the ADA's office, and also our partners. One of the great things that I've learned since I've been in this command is that I have so many partners. There are so many great institutions in this command. And I always talk about it when I go different places and I make speeches. You know, if you think about it, where this command goes from 110th Street up to parts of 141 to Congress City College, great institutions of learning, Columbia University, City College, Barnard College, you know, great institutions, great communities. This is a great community that I'm in right now. Morningside Gardens with great hardworking people that the only thing they want to do is, after they come home from work, is to be able to enjoy their lives, enjoy their families. It is my job every day to think about the things that I can do to help to make sure that this community stays a safe and quiet place to live. So we took some real bad actors off the street, and hopefully we're going to be able to keep them there for a long time. But step two is that once we remove these people from the street, we want to make sure that the cycle doesn't start again. So the Manhattan ADA's office come up with a plan where they call it shareholders. And something that I've been doing, where we try to get everyone in the community that has a part in the community involved. So we can do things to try to deter the next generation of kids. Because some of these kids are very young. You know, the youngest person was 10 years old. You know, involved in this type of criminal activity. And it's something that starts very young. So we as a community, we have to make sure that we engage these kids at a young age. And, you know, we find things for them to do, and that we remove the people that are committing the violent acts. So step one was take some of these bad people off the street that are committing some of these crimes. Step two now is to partner up and find the things that we can do as a community, all of us, to stop this from happening again. So I'm happy to be here. I do think going forward, you know, I'm always optimistic that we're going to be able, this is going to help us to take a real bite out of what's going on. We're going to keep those people away, and we're going to try to do things with the young kids coming up, especially as the summer months approach, so we don't see this reoccurrence of this type of violence. It's happened in other places, and it's worked. You know, I'm very encouraged by my partners. You know, I got a partner right here, Captain Montalvo. He's always at my meetings. You know, anytime something happens, you know, we can count on the camera system here to help us out. You know, we've been able to close out a lot of crimes, aside the crimes that we've had with the youth, other crimes that's happened in this neighborhood. So, you know, I want to thank all the residents here. You know, and I can look in this room, I can see everyone here, and this is a community. I love to come to places like this where I can see people involved, people coming, wanting to be a part of their neighborhood, wanting to, you know, be caretakers of their neighborhood. Because police officers can't do it by themselves. We can't just do it with the ADA's office. We need everyone to be involved. So when I come here and I see people who work hard all day, you know, come and make time to come and be a part of this meeting, it makes me feel good as a law enforcement professional. Because let's be honest, there's places I've been where I might get 2 or 3 people, and you know, in far worse situations. So you know, I feel great when I come here and I see a packed house and I can ask the questions and we can make sure that everyone understands. Because I know there's questions in here. You know, people want to know what's going on. Are the police still gonna be here? Are you gonna move your police other places? You know, and I can tell you, you know, making sure that this area stays safe is priority number 1 for me. You know, there are different places in the command, and like any law enforcement professional, I always kind of, every week sit with my supervisors and we gotta say, well, where are we gonna put our resources? Because resources is always limited. But I do feel that this area, 125 Street, the side blocks, Amsterdam Avenue, Broadway, I think it's the centerpiece of that. If I can keep crime here low, it affects the whole command. So I am determined to make sure that we keep resources here and we maintain it. So there's gonna be a big maintenance plan, I'm gonna call it, to make sure that we stay on top of what's going on, and if we do see any reoccurrence of any type of gang activity, that we stomp that out. After the takedown, there was some issues. Nothing ever goes smoothly. We did have some individuals shooting pellets, and I'm sure you guys know about that too. There was some people hurt by these pellets. Now, this has happened before. We had an individual shooting pellets last summer on LaSalle. We didn't catch the individual, but one of the things, we kind of have an idea who might be doing it, but we just can't run into people's homes if we don't have enough evidence. So one of the things that we did do was sound alarm. We really made sure we got the word out. We made sure we inundated the area with information, and I did think that put pressure on whoever was doing it not to do it. In this instance, we've put up cameras. So we're gonna do everything we can do, and we're gonna keep investigating. And even in this instance, we have an idea where it might be coming, but, you know, legally, to have an idea to be able to go into someone's home, that's a big step. You know, we have to follow the law, that's what we do. But we have taken some measures, and I'm happy to say that we haven't seen a reoccurrence in almost a week, knock on wood. But we put cameras down. We've inundated the area with pamphlets. We've sent out detectives to knock on every door in that building. And we're gonna continue to keep doing that, and we're gonna put the pressure on it. So if we cannot arrest that person, because legally we can't get to that spot right now, we're gonna put the pressure on so that person, maybe the family of that person, can tell them to knock it off. And that's just things we're gonna continue to do, so, if there's any question, anything I missed, please, this is my, first time really being here and speaking to everyone. I know last year we had some people come over to the precinct, but I don't get a lot of time to come out and speak to you guys. I know everyone has a busy schedule, and I thank everyone for coming out. But if you have any question, remember, that precinct over there is there for you, please. I got a hand right there. Yes, ma'am.
Speak up loud. How about a mic?
I'm sure there have been experiences like this before in other areas, and therefore there must be some ideas of the best practices to deal with this, not for, as you said, to avoid a recurrence, to help the community to grow and move toward a different direction. So, which are these best practices? And secondly, which are the institutions we might refer to because of their expertise and also their means that might invest? So on which institutions could we put pressure to work together?
Well, some of the best practices, we had something like this, and I'm sure the representatives from the ADA's office could probably answer a little better than me. It had similar takedown on the east side of Manhattan, and some of those housing developments, and they had great success, and it was done on a bigger scale over here. But some of the things, we're getting some of the business leaders together, whether business owners or people, residents in the building, and trying to see who has what type of skills. Because one of the things that we're gonna have to do, we're gonna have to engage these young kids. Because, there's a lot of young kids, it's summertime is coming, and we have to try to occupy their time. We have to go into some of these homes and find out what's going on in some of these homes so we can refer people. And these are some of the things that we're doing. We have teams every day going up of 4 officers, community affairs officers, and they're speaking to residents every day in these 2 developments and trying to explain what has happened, because some people are upset. They feel the police were a little bit overboard, or not my son, not my kid. So we try to go out there and we try to engage them. We try to have events. Last year, we closed down Old Broadway. I don't know if some of you people saw it, and we had events where we got different people to come and we try to engage the kids. And we're gonna continue to try to do that, but I know in this room we have a lot of people that have a lot of different skills and maybe can add and have a lot of resources, because in today's world, resources are slim. So we try to partner up, I reach out to different businesses. When we have events, they supply us with food and different things. I also look to see where we can employ some of these kids, so I can refer them for jobs, because one of the biggest things to curb is to get someone a job and get them off the street. So those are some of the things that we're looking at.
The question was, non-profit institutions, I know you're
Wait, that turn.
We actually have some of that. I'm sure some people might know Columbia. They started a foundation, and I've worked with one of the leaders of the Prom Foundation, the Upper West Side. I think I didn't get the acronym, but they do have different organizations that they've given money to come out and do some of the mentoring and some of these job training and professional training that a lot of these kids and young people need. So it is happening, but we're trying to get it more in a coordinated effort to make sure that we have everybody from the ADAs to the police department down to the residents, so everyone can work together and we can find out what everyone's strength is. And also have an open line of communication, because like you said, people are concerned. They want to make sure, and I can tell by this room, people want to make sure that after this, the police don't disappear and that this doesn't start up again. And they want to have a place they can go to if they see this happening. So, you know, this is why I'm here. You're absolutely right. There's some things that we can do better, and I think in this type of room, in this forum, we can put our heads together and we can think about things that we can do better. And some people here might have some organizations that they can refer, and we want you to come in and be part of the fold. So those are some of the things I'm looking. I don't know if we want to go to my partner right here from the ADA's office, and maybe we'll ask some questions afterwards, because I know they can answer a lot of the questions that you guys might have.
If I may, Inspector, he's got one last question. His hand is getting.
No, I asked everyone's question, but I know.
No, but I wanted to, you know, introduce them, and they're from the Assistant District Attorney's Office, Cabrera, Reynaldo Cabrera, and Linda Jones? Linda Jones. That's right. Okay, and so I wanted them to make their introduction the same way the inspector did, and then if you guys have questions, then you'll direct it to the inspector or the ADA's office, and this way, then we'll spend the rest of the day, the night, you know, the time with your questions. So I want them to sort of give their version of what went on.
Can I answer a question first? And then
Yeah, if you have that question.
Well, maybe you're going to speak about this. I was just very curious what is going to happen next with the 103 indictments and the people who've been swept up. And in particular, what assurances do we have that they won't be out on bail or out, you know, because they're not successfully prosecuted in a couple of months and doing the same things all over again? That's my question.
Okay, so let me first introduce myself. I'm Ray Cabrera. I'm an assistant district attorney here in Manhattan. I'm with a specialized unit within the office. It's called Crime Strategy. And let me explain to you quickly what that is. In 2010, Cy Vance began this unit. I was one of the 5 ADAs who were picked to be part of this unit. He selected the 5 of us because there were 5 senior attorneys. And what he decided to do was divide up Manhattan into 5 geographic areas. He assigned me to cover the areas of West Harlem all the way up to Washington Heights and Inwood. What he wanted me to do, and each of us in the 5 different geographic areas to do, was to do an analysis. What are the crime issues in the different neighborhoods and come up with a plan, a strategy. We needed to identify hotspots, we needed to identify so-called crime drivers. These individuals, we started to track them, and then we also started figuring out what were the issues, the hotspot issues, and how do we come up with a plan. And so working with the community members, understanding what the crime trends were, working with the police department, we started to focus on specific areas and specific individuals. This particular area, the Grand Houses, Manhattanville houses, came to our attention because of the violence. And that's one of the things that the DA tasked us with. We need to come up with a strategy to eliminate the violence. You know, when DA Vance took office in 2010, the city was experiencing historic lows when it came to violence, but that DA was not satisfied. There's always room for improvement, and so he created this innovative group called Crime Strategy. In that time frame, like I said, we started focusing very quickly on the violence, and the violence, as unfortunately was right across the street from this building. And so over the course of the next 3.5 years, we started focusing on this area, looking at all the violence, and trying to understand, like, who are the players? Why is this happening? And then eventually developing the case that was ultimately presented to a grand jury, which resulted in 103 individuals being indicted. Now, as far as what that means is this. We eventually learned that there were 3 gangs, 2 gangs in this specific area. 3 stacks out of the Grand Houses, Make It Happen boys out of Manhattanville. There's a 3rd gang that was involved in this gang warfare. It's Money Ave crew. Those guys were on 116th to 120th Street, between Morningside and Manhattan Avenue. Now, the 2 crews, the Money Ave crew and the Make It Happen boys, were aligned against the 3 stacks folks, and all of this really was, let's put it this way, nothing. Violence for the sake of violence. What happened was, you know, young people get into a fight, and the fight escalates. And one night, September 11th of 2011, a young woman, the name of Tayshana Murphy, I'm sure you either read about it or heard about it, shot by two individuals out of the Manhattanville houses, Make It Happen boys. And so that incident sort of triggered the successive violence that came afterwards. And so at that point, the violence escalated. There was another individual who was shot and killed a little further north, over by the polo grounds, a young man by the name of Walter something. And so the gang violence has escalated after that point, and for the next year or so, there were a lot of shootings. For our office, our job obviously is to work closely with the police department and to process all and so, as we got these cases, we were obviously trying to do our best to prosecute those cases. But my job as an assistant in this crime strategies unit is to make the connections between these cases. So, if there's a shots fired somewhere, someone shoots off a gun, we are investigating that case, and maybe someone doesn't get arrested. We're still investigating it, and so we did a lot to try to figure out why shootings were happening in this area, and developing enough information that we would have a provable case. So when we do finally indict this case, that when we ask for bail, that bail is set. And overwhelmingly with all these individuals, they were remanded, which means no bail is set, that they cannot post bail. A good number of them were actually already in custody. Like I said, as we were picking up these shootings, police department, we were prosecuting those cases. Some of those individuals were prosecuted for a bunch of those shootings. So I can tell you at least a couple of them are serving 15 years, 12 years. What the indictment basically alleges is that from 2010 through as recent as May this year, these individuals engaged in a conspiracy to commit murder, conspiracy to possess firearms, conspiracies to commit assaults. What has happened is that these individuals conspired together, individually and as a group, to commit acts of violence against each other. And so that's what the conspiracy alleges. The part of the conspiracy alleges that individuals who were over the age of 18 were trying to recruit individuals as young as 10. So no one in this case who's 10 years old was actually indicted. What we're alleging is that they were recruiting young individuals as young as 10. The range of defendants, the youngest is 15, the oldest I believe is 30. Okay? These individuals, I believe we have previously prosecuted them collectively as a group on individual crimes, at least 317 convictions, half of which were all felonies. So that gives you a perspective of the group that we're dealing with. So these are not necessarily choir boys. These are individuals who were involved in some serious violence. But our job as prosecutors is just not to put these kids away. Our job is also to focus on keeping this area safe. So as far as what the plan is, what we've been doing in anticipation of this takedown is we created what we're calling a stakeholder. And what that means is this. As this investigation was progressing, we realized that this is something that no one agency can tackle alone. All the issues that we're seeing, we are a law enforcement agency, the police department's a law enforcement agency. We're not social service providers. So we need to partner up with community members, community folks who are the experts. So taking sort of a page from what we did over in East Harlem, I don't know if you are aware, in April 2013, we did a similar takedown over in East Harlem. 3 gangs, very similar facts as far as shootings, murders, and all the individuals involved. So 63 people in that case. And so once that takedown happened, we had a stakeholder group over there. And what's been happening over there is we partnered up with the local, whether it's a church, schools, local elected officials, building owners in that area, and basically partnering up with those folks to figure out what is the need of the community and addressing it by, if this agency has resources for, computer programs, well, they're going to open up their facility and invite those kids in. For education, we're partnering up with the Department of Education, figuring out if this person is a truant, what can we do to get that person back on track to get back in school. We're working with whoever wants to work with us. If you're willing to be part of that stakeholders, and I can tell you now that your building done in other locations. And so that's kind of the plan, but I know that that's not the only solution. We need to continue to do this. So that's kind of the overall, what's been going on. I know we powered through it really quickly, so I'm sure you still have a lot of questions, and that's why we're here. This is a partnership, and like I said, my role in the DA's office now, I don't handle individual cases. My role is to act as a liaison for you, as the DA, to address whatever issues you have, bring it back, and then sit in our office and figure out, okay, so what do we do? How do we continue to attack this problem? We know that the stakeholders has been successful. If you look at the statistics over in East Harlem, I don't have a map with me, but the map leading up to 2013 clearly shows a lot of different pushpins indicating either homicides or shootings, a variety of violence. Big clusters. The year since the stakeholders has been in place, there's very few pushpins on that map. And that just goes to show the impact that removing all these people in mass, the really violent folks, and then holding the ground. This is no longer whack-a-mole. Whack-a-mole, and then they come back. We're going to hold the ground, and we need you to hold the ground. This is your community. This is our community. We live here. We come here, and we want to be part of the community. So, obviously, any ideas, any suggestions, we are open, and any help we can get from you is obviously welcome. So, thank you.
Pass some mics around. Everybody just grab a turn. We see hands, but you could stand up if you like, or you could ask a question now. Thank you.
My question is directed more towards Captain Montalvo than to Inspector Griffiths, but either one of you could assist with the answer. I know here in Morningside, we have for many years had an escort service between the gardens here and the subway and or bus. And I would like to know if that service is still very active and whether or not it needs to be beefed up a little bit. Many of us as seniors, or even if we're not seniors, are out after dark. And now, since we've heard about all the activity going on in the community, would like to know if that service is still good.
Okay, it's basically a domestic question on public safety escorting residents to the train, anywhere in the store, or whatnot. The population of officers that I have here have to maintain a perimeter patrol and focus on the elements that come from the outside in here. Any strangers that decide to just sit around on the benches and maybe with ideas of doing something, criminal act. When I pulled out an officer to do an escort, to take you to the train, number one is out of the property. The officers have a union, they're protected within the property. They have that jurisdiction within the property only. They come out of the property and something happens to them, we're in a world of lawsuits and other issues. We do a minimum amount of escorts, let's say to Citibank, which is a concern where someone may want to do a big deposit, and I'll definitely grab an officer. I don't care. That's really an issue that I don't want anything to happen. There are commercial tenants, so we should help out with those type of escorts. As far as off the property, that goes into a different level. And the amount of officers that I have right now are a major budget. We're always willing to help though. Just always call, and if we could do it, we'll do it. Larry?
Question. It was asked a few seconds ago about these people returning if they were out on bail. And I was just wondering, I thought at one time public housing had a rule that if a family housed a person who committed a criminal act, that family had to be moved out. Is that rule still in place?
Well,
Nobody's been convicted.
right.
Oh, it's conviction. It's conviction.
Conviction, yes. There's, the New York City Housing Authority has their rules and regulations. I believe it's a narcotics eviction. It has to be specific to that. I believe if you have previously been convicted of a felony, that might disqualify you. But, and that's
that sometimes when you investigate, especially with these type of youth crews, some of these kids have been thrown out their house and they just moved from apartments to apartments. We've had instances where some of these young kids have taken over apartments. They found someone, maybe an elderly person or someone that was a substance abuser, and they actually took over the apartment. They were hanging out in the apartment, they were dealing from the apartment. So sometimes we deal with parents, and the parents say, I threw him out 6 months ago. I don't want him, but he's moving from apartments to apartments. So NYCHA does have a program where they try to evict people. Now, my opinion, they could do a little more, but you know, that's something we're gonna look at to see where, if these people are indicted, and maybe we can get them barred where they're arrested for coming on housing development. But like you said, that's always a tricky proposition. So maybe you can answer that.
One final point, the idea that these folks are coming back quickly, let me just point this out. The 62 individuals who were part of the indictment last year over in East Harlem, just recently, the last 3 individuals pled guilty. And the ranges of sentences were on average from anywhere from as low as 5 years up upwards of 20 years. And every single individual in that indictment pled guilty. And that's because the volume of evidence against this individual, the strength of these cases. And I can tell you personally, because I worked on this investigation, that I know the evidence pretty well, and it's rather strong as far as, you know, there's video, there's Facebook stuff, there's inmate phone calls that we listen to. You know, whether all 103 will plead guilty, I can't obviously guarantee that. But should they go to trial, I think the prospect of them not being convicted is very small.
And let's be honest, half of the reason why these kids do it is to brag. You know, if these kids didn't brag about it, it would make our job that much harder. And some of these times, these kids will commit a crime and they'll go right on Facebook and they'll brag about it. We have kids with guns that we've recovered. So a lot of these kids, half of it in it for them is just to brag and say that I'm bad. And thankfully they do that, and that made this case a little bit more easier to take down. But it was a lot of work. If you read the investigation, over 1 million Facebook pages was read. So 1 million, think about that, was investigated. Phone calls, you know, determining their language, you know, how they talk. You know, they call a gun, they have a name for a gun, and you know, they get my shorty, that means my gun. So you start to develop and you find out what they're talking about, and we're able to pinpoint to the point where there's retaliation. Right down to the last day before this takedown happened, it was back and forth. And I was at the scene of a shooting that involved members from Grant going over to St. Nick Terrace, because there's a crew over there that they were beefing with. So up to the last day, these kids were at it. So, and a lot of these kids are going to face very long prison sentence, especially the main agitators. And I think that's going to bode well for this community as a whole.
So I have a question, if I may. Actually, they passed it to you. I had it for a while. But anyway, just a quick question. Grant houses. I'm new in the building. I live in this building. Is Grant exactly across from LaSalle? It's not on Amsterdam, correct?
It is.
They're both Grant houses.
Yeah,
and where? Because I heard shots, so that's why I'm wondering. One night, and I'm wondering if it was. So you've got people from both buildings. Is that correct?
We got numerous people from a myriad of buildings in Grant Development. So we have a lot of people from that we believe are the main agitator to this violence under arrest, and they are from different parts of the development as a whole.
Okay, so both. Thank you so much.
So.
I just wanted to say something and ask a question.
Oh, yes,
I'm
sorry.
guessing, this is a guess, that most of us would hope that families would not be evicted because someone in there.
Let's not get into social issues.
I just have to say that because I saw people recently, and so do I. And I don't think, I'm only saying that not because that's something you're doing, but just because I know a lot of us are coming from that place. It may not be a majority, but at any rate. And then I had another question, which was, I don't remember who this lady was. Is she working with you?
She works with
What's your
community partnerships.
What's your name?
Good evening.
My name is Linda Janae. I am the Deputy Director of the Community Partnership Unit of the District
Oh,
Attorney's
okay.
Office. So let me just make one statement, just go back to the issue with NYCHA and who they think, who they don't think.
Speak
I think that-
loudly, please.
I'll start over again.
No, I was yelling, but I didn't yell.
Test, here we go.
So I apologize. Once again, my name is Linda Janae. I'm the Deputy Director of the Community Partnerships Unit in the District Attorney's Office. So basically, my unit is responsible for, and I have what's called a Community Coordinator assigned to this area. Unfortunately, she's off this evening, so I came with Ray Cabrera instead. And so our job is to basically make sure we go out to various communities, make sure our office is aware of their concerns, and make sure we bring resources to communities and to NYPD as needed. So in terms of NYCHA, we do a lot of work with NYCHA. We attend the Grant and Manhattanville meetings on a regular basis and work very closely with the tenant associations. But I think to have someone correctly answer questions and issues as far as NYCHA and their eviction proceedings, we really need to have someone from NYCHA at this meeting, and we can arrange for that to happen. We are in a very easy position to push NYCHA for evictions when narcotics are involved. We have grounds to even do those evictions ourselves if NYCHA doesn't move forward. And we very frequently will take over narcotic evictions in NYCHA apartments when it involves clear evidence that the apartment was being used for illegal, as an illegal business. But we are as a rule of thumb, do not get involved with evictions in NYCHA when it's not drug related. NYCHA has implemented several new programs over the years, and one that they're rolling out now. And once again, I'm just going to say a couple of words about it because really NYCHA should speak to you about their procedures. But they do have a program now, as the inspector mentioned earlier. Often in NYCHA apartments, even when individuals are told they're not to be there any longer, they move from apartment to apartment because maybe they'll have a number of relatives that live in the same building or in the same development. So NYCHA at this point has a very poor way of accounting for who's in apartments. So one of the programs they're implementing, and I'm just saying a couple of words about it because I'm not the best qualified to speak about it, but to try to get a handle on that, what they're trying to do is when individuals have served their sentences, and they're freed from incarceration, they now have a program where they can return to their apartments and legitimately become a part of that household composition. So NYCHA has that program, and once again, they're rolling it out. The last time I attended a meeting, they were rolling it out as of the beginning of this year or toward the end of last year. So they would be the best individuals to come here, and I'm sure they would come and talk about their programs and their eviction proceedings.
I didn't get to ask my one question. Mine was a comment, but I'm glad you spoke because I wanted to know what you had to say. I just wanted to know if a meeting similar to this is going to be happening with the people at Grant Houses.
They have a monthly resident association meeting. So.
Explain everything that you explained to us.
Well, they have a regular meeting, and yes, my staff will attend those meetings, both for a Grant and for Manhattanville.
Well, like I said, there's been
an aggressive push by NYPD to make sure we get out the word of what has happened. We don't want tails to take off, so we've been putting our community affairs officers in the light blue shirts to walk and engage the residents, explain to them what's happened in the process. I also attend, and my counterpart in PSA 6, which covers these development, Louis Despain, he speaks regularly at the Tenant Association meeting. I also speak to the Tenant Association president, so we have a relationship. So these issues get out, and we speak to them about what's coming up. So for a while, we couldn't speak about what was coming. But as it happened, we made sure we got out our information blitz to counter any misconceptions that might be happening.
Did they also learn about the community activities, reach out, or I forgot what you called it.
Community Partnerships Unit. Yes, they will. They do.
Okay, other questions?
Okay,
The one with the mic now, you next.
I wanted to address the ADA who was talking about social services. You know, it kind of concerns me that so many of these people who were arrested were young kids, probably within, you know, the range of 16 to 24. And so I think the basketball thing is great, but I think what the community over in Grant really needs is GED programs, job programs. I think people, I think some of these kids are bored. There's nothing for them to do, and this is why this happens. And my concern is, you can put all these kids away, but there's going to be another crop right behind them. And until we address the systemic problem of poverty in the projects, I don't think this is ever going to change. So is there a community center where they can go to get GEDs and go and get job training and go and get social services?
So to address a couple things, our viewpoint is that there are folks who are on the horizon, potentially people who could take those spots that are now that void that's there, but we're not taking that defeatist attitude. Our attitude is, and we heard Chief Banks this morning, the highest ranking uniform officer, and the way that the police department views it, and I think we agree with this viewpoint, is, this is not an end. Just because they came in and swept up all these people and high five and walk out. Today, or June 4th, was the beginning of what we're going to do here. We can't just sort of look away and say, that's it. So as far as what we're doing is, like I said, we're having meetings with stakeholders, and we are, like I said, targeting folks that we believe can offer some of those things that you're mentioning. We are working with the Community Partnerships Unit, and Linda can speak more to this than I can. All the different agencies that we have partnered with, and like I said, Department of Education is a partner, and we're working with different groups who can specifically target that age range. We didn't pick these folks; they picked themselves. They're the ones that were committing these shootings, and our job is to protect you, your children, and your family members, and we want to make sure you're safe. And so we were very selective here. People who are part of this indictment were not indicted just because they were posting a Facebook message. It goes beyond that. That's just part of the evidence. Like I said, we have videos, we have phone calls, individuals who have self-admitted to committing these crimes. So this is not just one day we decided we're going to grab the first 103. This is, a 3.5-year investigation that we carefully and selectively done.
I have a couple of questions. The first is on the nature of the police action. I know you worked hard to plan what you needed to do, but I personally woke up seeing a helicopter out my window. I felt like I was in the middle of a war zone, and I hear about doors being rammed in, etc. And I would appreciate an explanation of exactly how you chose the measures that you did, and perhaps I misunderstand, but it seemed so military to me that I found it frightening. So that's my first question. My second is along the lines that I think was just raised about what happens next that will help prevent this gang activity that goes on. And one thing I have just heard, and maybe somebody can clarify, that 57 community centers are being closed down. I don't know if that affects Grant and Manhattanville, but if that's true, it just seems to speak against exactly what you're trying to do in terms of having services for the youth that need it. So I don't know if someone could speak to that issue or not.
Well, as far as the takedown, it was planned, and I have to say, we're dealing with some very dangerous people who've committed some very reckless acts. Firing a firearm on 125th Street in the daytime is a very reckless and dangerous act. So when you're dealing with those type of people, unfortunately, you have to swoop in very quickly, and when you're dealing with that amount of people, to come in and to take those people into custody without incident. And I will say, on that day, we took, I think, over 40 people into custody, and we didn't have an incident. So unfortunately, sometimes you do have to come with a certain amount of force to overtake any type of obstacle. Remember, we're going into apartments where we know some of these apartments have firearms. So we have to come with a certain amount of force to make sure anything we might need, we're equipped to deal with. So in that case, I do feel that, even though it seemed alarming, and you know what, it is alarming to see a helicopter flying in the air. But when you're dealing with numerous buildings, people have access to the roofs, people can run from place to place. If a suspect runs out armed into the courtyard, we have to have units able to deal with that. Can you imagine the chaos if we didn't, and someone went running around with a high-powered rifle, and we weren't equipped to deal with that? So yeah, it does seem alarming, but unfortunately, that's what we needed, and we did take time and try to make sure. And that's why when it was done, we went right into our campaign of making sure that we got the word out. There was representatives from media, Twitter accounts were activated, community affairs were up and down on the block. So we wanted to make sure that, even though it was alarming, it's what needed to be done to take these individuals into custody. Because like I said, up to the night before, there were shootings involving these individuals. So there were a lot of guns out there. So we had to make sure we did that in a way where, we didn't have any resistance. And that's the way we had to do it for that day. As far as social services, I'm with you. I wish we could keep more of these institutions open, and I go to meetings and, and I'm back and forth too. So that's why we reach out to the community, because I know the people in this room can reach out to their representatives, explain to them the urgencies of making sure that these kids have the type of social mechanisms and safety net available to them. So we have to push, and this is the start, doing it in a place like this, getting the word out, getting the consensus that, the police did part one, the community and their representatives have to make sure there's a part two, and part two is making sure that the resources are there to help these kids, help these families who are living on the edge of poverty. And I agree with some of the sentiments here. It is a difficult situation when you go into some of these homes and you see the way that the family is living, and then you understand why the kids are on the street most of the time, because there are problems, and we try to get into these homes, whether it's problems with substance abuse, whether it's problems, medical problems, things that we can do to refer the people that are the head of household, so they can maybe regain their lives and take control of what their kids are doing out there. So yeah, it's a difficult situation. It's something that didn't happen overnight, and it's going to take time to repair. But I do believe every meeting that I go to, and every time we build partners, I think we make a step in, doing and trying to curb some of the things that are happening out there.
Are community centers being closed?
Okay, I would like to respond to that, please. I know that there was an article that a number of New York City Housing Authority community centers were being closed. I think what's happened is that some of those centers were not being ran properly. So NYCHA closed them down, and basically they were taken over by the Department of Youth Services and Community Development. That agency put out RSVP. Thank you. And small community-based organizations were allowed to respond and put in a proposal to reopen those facilities with what they call cornerstone programs. And so they were taken over by private providers. A lot of NYCHA folks were not happy with those community centers no longer being ran by NYCHA. But I personally worked with a number of those centers, mostly on the Lower East Side, and I hope there's not a reporter in the room that's going to say this, because I'll deny that I said it, but those centers are now being ran better than they were when they were being ran by NYCHA. And the same thing as per the Manhattanville Community Center, exactly that. They closed it down. The closing probably was for less than a week before an organization called Grand Wyndham actually was rewarded the Cornerstone grant, and they now run that community center, and I think they're doing an excellent job. I just very quickly, I just want to talk just a little bit more about the stakeholders group, because I don't think that we're communicating the purpose of it properly. When we knew this takedown was going to happen, we knew this community needed a lot of resources pumped back in and made available to the youth. We started meeting with different service providers and different organizations that can provide job training, can provide GED assistance, can provide a lot more than that in terms of social services for this community as far back as last fall. And we met with them with the mission of explaining what the issues are, explaining as much as we could about what's going to happen in terms of the criminal activity, and explaining to them that going forward, we want them to be a part of a working group that would agree to sit down with us and come with a plan to provide services to this community. We had our inaugural meeting with the entire group a couple of weeks before the takedown. We've already planned our second meeting, which will take place next week. So if there's anyone in the room that works for, we also have pulled Columbia in. So if anyone in the room works with an organization that they feel as if they can work with us to add to the laundry list of individuals that we have that are willing to work with us to provide services, if you give me your information, I'll be more than glad to contact you in reference to the meeting and talk a little bit more about what organization you represent, because we definitely want to be individuals that can work with us to provide services for youth in this community. So if you're that person, please give me your card, give me your name, and I'll reach out to you before the meeting.
Okay, question over there with the mic.
I like
Speak into the mic, please. It's on, it's on.
I like to address this to ADA. I like to address to the ADA. You were talking about gang groups, and you are well aware of them, and you know who they are. The root of the problem, I know from the work I have done, is the gang and the gang initiation. And all of this is just the after effect of what we see. And I know your role is just to keep us safe, but I think the safest thing is, according to me, is to not let the initiation take place, the gang initiation take place, and work so intensively these gang groups. And I know it's not, I mean, it's just talking is easy than doing, I'm very well aware. But I do see that gradually, if we really prevent the initiation of the gang activities, we may be able to gradually really take control and safety sort of environment for all of us, you know, for all of us. And that's all I just wanted to say.
Hi, I don't know if I missed it when I came in, but I live at 70 LaSalle, and my window, I'm on the third floor, looks right into the project. And every night, almost every single night, we see something. And I was wondering if there's any way to get more security on the corner where there seems to be a lot of activity on LaSalle and Amsterdam, or an extra security. Because I've come in at night and there's never a soul. And it's
What type of activity?
what type of activity? Criminal activity. There's always shots. There's always kids running. There's always a police. There's never a night. I do not let my kids stay in my living room at night. That's
Is this after?
This is before, but then the night after, I saw on the door that there was something. Right after the takedown, but the next day that there was something.
Well, you saw on the door the information we put out in regards to the BB gun incidents that happened that day and the night preceding, so we want to get the information out.
No, I just wanted to expand on what she's saying, that the gun that was used in a shooting that actually shattered the window of an apartment, I think in this building, I think it was last summer.
It was actually building 2.
Okay, building 290. But actually, the shooting took place in the driveway in front of LaSalle, and the gun was stashed in the planter that was in front of the driveway on the corner of Amsterdam and LaSalle. And that's frequently a corner, and the last shots that were fired off Amsterdam, and the crowds were running down LaSalle in that area. And I've actually had conversations with security personnel here who've said that if something happened that they saw on the cameras from a different outpost, they wouldn't be able to get there in time at 70 LaSalle because the area is desolate. The area has a lot of opportunity for hiding in the garbage area, in the recycling area. It's a desolate, supervised place, and it's where all the action, criminal activity, has been going down. So it just seems like an obvious place to have a guard booth, to have more criminal, to have more police oversight.
Have a bigger presence.
A bigger presence, and might give you more insight into what's happening as well, because it seems to be where it is happening.
I think the expectation for our office and also the inspector is that going forward, we should see a dramatic drop in that type of activity and with shootings and violence. You know, prior to 2011, this was relatively quiet, comparatively speaking to other areas. And our expectation is that now that these folks have been removed in mass, traditionally the way these cases used to go, we would take out one gang at a time. What we found that is more effective if we just take them out all at once, because you eliminate that back and forth. So as far as going forward, I think we should expect that to reduce. The other thing about this area is that your building in particular, and actually the Grant houses, are pretty well equipped with video cameras. But believe it or not, I'm telling you that that's the case, because we have obtained videos. So some of the things that you mentioned, we've seen it because we have seen the videos.
Right, but you couldn't prevent it.
Right,
You
yeah.
see it after the fact.
Well, one of the things that we do as far as, and I was speaking maybe before you get here, before you got here, weekly I sit down with my supervisors. We look over the crime sheets of what's happened the week before. But one of the areas, like I said, everyone has limited resources, so I have to make sure that I staff certain areas of the command. So one of the areas, I don't know, 125th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, I keep a cop there 24 hours a day. And the reason I do that is because that seems to be the origin where some of the incidents happen. A lot of the kids, when they come out from Grant, they come from Manhattanville because all the stores, they meet up there. That's when the incidents start. So by keeping a cop there, there's a place where the community knows 24 hours a day, there's a cop there, there's a cop where they can reach. The kids know there's a cop there. And I did think it helped us. Now, I'd be glad if I had 100 cops, I could put a cop in every corner, but we don't. So one of the things we do when we see a trend happening, whether it be violent trends or shooting or robberies, we do directed patrols, and we make sure our sector cars patrol certain areas. When we had the incident with BB guns last year on LaSalle Street, we made sure that the cops were driving up and down with the lights on. We did a big push to try to stop that, and it actually stopped. Now, definitely, what I always say when I come to these meetings, we want your input. So now you're telling me that LaSalle and Amsterdam Avenue is a major concern. I'm going to really come out there and try to take a look at it. Maybe we can put lights up there to make it less desolate. Sometimes we can do that to lighten up the area. I can have more patrol by my patrol cars. But, you know, I do look where the trends are happening, and I try to put, especially patrol cops or fixed foot post cops at locations where I think they're going to be get the bang for the buck. It's getting warm down. The parks are always a concern of mine. Morningside Park, St. Nick Park. So we make sure that we amp up our patrols in the park. So, yes, ma'am.
I just finished, like a couple weeks ago, there was just like a robbery on like 92nd and Broadway. 4 days, there must have been like 12 cops on every corner in that area. Why isn't that here? I walked in at night and been arrested several times, and never is there a person around. Ever. And it's always in this area.
All right,
I
well.
have little kids.
Well, it's truly reassuring. Is this?
Speak into the mic.
Okay. It's truly reassuring to hear all of the activities that are going on to prevent these things from happening. This is a sort of a self-protective question. Do we know which building the BB gun shooter is working from?
We believe it was coming out of 3170 Broadway.
3170
yeah, that building faces Broadway. It's pretty much,
up on the corner?
yeah, it's the closest building to 125th Street. And we believe from the direction and the way that victims were hit, that it was coming out of that building. And we have a good idea of maybe or 4 apartments that it might have came out of. So there's been a good push to make sure that either we can send our detectives in there and we can maybe get some legal rights to get into the apartment, or we can put the pressure on the person that's doing it. We've put up cameras, and I'll say that publicly, so if someone knows, the word will get back to them. I'm sorry. Because sometimes the way you fight crime, if you can't put handcuffs on people, you make it so uncomfortable for them that they even move on or they stop doing what they have to do. So that's what we're trying to do now, get the word out to everybody. So if you're in that area, you're more careful about moving around, and get it out to the people that might be doing it. Sometimes a family member, a brother or sister might know their brother's doing it, and they might stop it. You know, the police are coming, I don't want the cops coming into my apartment. So we try to do different things. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do now.
How much damage can a BB gun do?
It can do a lot of damage, depending on what it
Yes,
is.
I know, it's serious.
It can take out an eye, it can do tissue damage.
Right.
So it's a serious crime, and it's just something that we're not gonna stand for. So we're on it, we're gonna keep doing it. Thankfully, once I put out a plan of attack, we haven't had any incidents for a couple of days, almost a week. So I do think the push is helping, and we're gonna keep it up. And hopefully we can build a case, and the detectives can build a case to ID someone and put handcuffs on them. But until then, we're gonna make sure that we stay on top of it, so it doesn't happen.
It makes me not want to go to Duane Reade on 125th Street.
I understand, yes, yes.
I just wanted to put a little different spin on here. You seem to be talking about the kids only, but there are a lot of adults here, and I can tell you, I was working with the recycling group. I was on every floor in Grant and several of the buildings taking photographs. People came out from their apartments. They were friendly. They were not hostile. I've been in when we did the whole thing of recycling fibers and stuff, clothing and things. We stored the stuff in one of the Grant Houses building until several days later they could pick it up. People have been very helpful, and the adults, I don't know much about the children and what's happening with what you're talking about. Also, I remember, listen, I've been here since the beginning of the co-op. I used to hesitate to walk to the D train through the projects, you know. And after a while, I found I didn't have to. And I began to go that way and never had a cause for concern until you, this is now saying, hey, do I have a cause for concern? I'd never have had to, at least not towards the end of the many few years, 10, 15 years. So I really wanted to say, hey, we have to keep this in perspective also. We don't suddenly have to be a community that's afraid. We have done normal things with normal people. We have that hands across the street. We have the thing where people come in to the Jackie Robinson Center and get their lunch. You know, so there's a lot of interchange and a lot of adult stuff. What has caused the children to change, and where are the guns coming from, is one of the concerns I have. How do you stop it, and how do you stop the guns? But I must say the adults that I've dealt with and the people that I've dealt with have been fine people. And I just thought somehow I had to inject that here.
Well, I'm glad you did. I actually want to say, this is not an indictment on everybody that lives in these developments, because majority of people are great people. You know, they're hardworking people. They add to this community. They add to the ambiance. This is a great community, and by far, this is one of the safest commands in the city. But with anything, it's my obligation to protect people, and we have had some violent incidents, and I would be negligent if I didn't get that out there to the community and make sure that they're safe. If the 88's office did not step in, and when these incidents happen, and remove bad actors from the community, because we don't want anyone. We've gotten crime in this city to some of the lowest levels ever. And by doing that is to make sure we don't get to a point where it becomes an epidemic. So that's the reason why when we see these buildups, we act aggressively and we remove people that are dangerous. So everyone, the people in the housing, have a right to move around and not hear gunshots and not be in harm's way. These kids have a right to play in these gardens.
It's not working out for me. These kids have a right to play in these gardens in public housing and use these areas. So what I will say is that, when we speak about this, it's not an indictment on everybody, but it's our job as law enforcement professionals that when we see a problem, we aggressively go after it and remove people that will harm people. And that's what we're trying to get out there. Great people over there. 97% of these people are great people, and I know because I interact every day, and they're the ones that come to me and give me the information on who's doing what. So I'm very grateful to the residents of Manhattanville and Grant for the work they do. But there are people, not just for this community, but for themselves. They want the police in there. They want the police to remove people so they can enjoy, what they work hard to have. So I just want to get that out. It's not an indictment on everybody, but it is the job of policing that we remove people that commit crimes because we want to keep it low. We want people to come to the city and be safe.
Yes, I have a question. I'm sorry, I forgot your name for the lady who's dealing with the stakeholders committee. Sorry, I'm forgetting your names. But I was listening to Brian Lehrer yesterday on WNYC, and a number of people called in from Grant. And the question I have for you is, and from Manhattanville, obviously many young children were traumatized by the raid. You could hear the mothers talking about the little girl who peed on herself, who didn't have clothes on, and all this stuff, and all of a sudden there are cops in there, whether they needed, so you take the word that it was necessary. Will there be programs to help children with post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of the raid? That's my question.
I don't know the answer to that because if there may be some services provided, but we would not be the individuals providing those services. We have what's called our Witness Aid Service Unit in my office, and that's located in our new Family Justice Center. So we're tasked with providing services for individuals that are victims of a crime and their family members. We don't have any type of funding or any mission within the parameters of what the district attorney's office does to provide services for family members of defendants when they're arrested. We simply don't have the resources to do that. We are having a meeting with Graham Wyndham. Once again, that's the service provider that took over the Manhattanville Community Center. Yeah. We've had that scheduled for Friday. Right. And from a brief conversation that I had with them during the course of last week, they talked about they were considering providing some counseling. Okay. So perhaps they're going to do that. I will find out when I speak with them on Friday. But there's just nothing within the parameters of what we do and the scope of what we do that would allow us to provide services for someone, a family member of someone that's just been arrested by the police department and incarcerated. Yeah.
I understand your position, and I just hope somehow people are thinking about that because it sounds like a lot of innocent kids were traumatized, and I know no one intended to do that, but it was one of the consequences.
And unfortunately, I've been in this business for more years than I'm going to tell you. But when an individual is involved in criminal activity, their family members suffer. I can't tell you how many times I've seen search warrants executed in drug dealers' apartments. No, let me go back. Not the drug dealer's apartment, the grandmother of the drug dealer. And he's put her in a position at age 70, 80, 90 years old of being evicted because of his activity. So those are consequences of criminal activity. And trust me, it breaks my heart. But unfortunately, there's fallout to all of this.
Okay, thank you. I'm living here since more than 50 years, and I always have a feeling of safety. I open my door when the bell rings without asking who it is, and I now feel since what happened at the lake that I'm not longer feeling safe. And I want to thank Officer Griffin very much for what has been done. And these people with murderous intent really are taken out. And I hope you are going to do that, and so that I feel safe opening my door and walking around here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
One quick comment and then just a question, and they're both really quick. One is I really just feel like it is extremely important now more than ever to build community here, to build community across the street. I would like to see our Community Relations Committee reinstated. I think it's extremely important. That's one thing. And the other thing is to just ask you in terms of stakeholders that you work with, do you work with individuals or just with institutions?
I guess it's both. For example, if we're working with an organization, so far, they've chosen to send their executive director to the meeting, which is a good thing because we want individuals coming to a meeting that actually have the authority within the organization to make a commitment. Institutions, we do have institutions involved, such as Columbia. We have other city agencies involved, such as NYCHA, and of course the police department. So it's a combination of all those things.
The reason I ask is I'm a professional writer and editor, and for example, if I wanted to teach a class and there were kids who were interested and they could write about their experiences, they could even write about the takedown, they could write about things that really matter to them. Am I somebody you would work with if I would work with you, or do you just work with large institutions?
As I said, if you're interested in working with us, if you give me your information, we'll have a conversation offline, and we'll make a determination as to whether or not it'd be appropriate for you to come to this meeting or not.
Okay.
But the schools, let me add this: the 4 schools that are in this immediate area, they have all been very involved, and they have been coming to the meeting. So I didn't mention that part. And then we also have a couple of churches in the area that are also involved. So I didn't mention those 2 components, and I just wanted to mention it.
And do you have pastors involved? Because I have connections with a number of pastors in Harlem.
Once again, the churches have designated individuals to attend, and so their pastors have sent individuals to the meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Good for you.
Hi.
That happened to me too, so.
It's for me to give a blast here. First of all, I'd like to thank the panel for coming, and everyone, Montalvo, everybody who organized this. A couple of things. What really concerns me, and I don't think this is news to anyone, but the fact that a lot of kids join gangs for protection. And how is that being addressed? And I know that's a huge problem. That's a really huge problem. But I hope in these programs that somehow you're able to reach out to these kids who, for only the reason of protection, will join a gang. And also, I heard the Brian Lear parts of it program yesterday myself, or the day before, whenever it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I thought I heard that the young lady who was so tragically and horribly shot, her brother was very involved in gangs, and that she was recruiting. Whether or not that's true, no one deserves to be killed like that, so I'm not blaming her for it. But I think that's another example of how young people, whether you're 10 years old or 17, are so intimidated by gang members, they will do certain things, you know? So I just hope that somehow this is being addressed because I think it's a crucial problem. Thank you.
I agree with you. There is a lot of initiation, there's a lot of forced initiation where they tell kids, you're either with us or you're against us. So we try to find those individuals. But I will tell people, these gang members, they're not from a different planet. These kids, even the ones that are in charge, or so-called in charge, are from the community. And at some point they were that little kid. So we try to reach out to them, you know, we try to, you know, see if we can turn them around. And if we can't, we rely on us in the 88 to take those bad actors out of the community so we can focus on the good kids. Because there are a lot of good kids. I always say, if you ever go and you see a commotion, maybe 4 people in that 20 are actually doing something. The rest of just want to go see a good fight. The young kids, what young kids do, they see something, they look. And my job as a police professional is to get in there and find out which are the good kids, which are the kids that I can refer to different organizations to find things to do to occupy their time, and which are the kids that I need to concentrate on and remove from the community. Because I'm gonna be honest, there are some bad kids, very small, that were doing some bad things, and we had to remove them from this community to have this community go forward. They just had to be removed, and hopefully, when they come back, they're ready to enter this community and be a part of the community and not take over the community. So.
Hello. I'd like to give a few observations and agree with the fact that there have been gangs for a long time. There will be gangs unless there are ways to give these kids an opportunity to enter into mainstream society with appropriate jobs and job training. Everyone talks of a lack of resources. What about Columbia?
Yeah.
Columbia has
Absolutely.
resources. Columbia is part of the community, very much a part of it now that they've moved in. Columbia is an educational institution. They can provide classes, they can provide training. They're an employer in the community. They can offer jobs, job training. There's a school of social work that can offer counseling. Columbia needs to be addressed and readdressed. And if you remember, when was it, in 1968? When there was the incident of the gym and people, I don't know what the word is, activated Columbia into doing something. And I think we have to do the same thing. You need the resources to make all the changes that you want, especially to get at the next generation, because they are in admiration of their brothers and sisters.
Right.
And Columbia seems to be one of the major players that can be approached.
Columbia University is part of the stakeholders group, and we have had meetings with them, and they are part of the stakeholders group, and they are committed to participating in this effort. But again, the question we really have to ask is not necessarily what are you as us, what are we doing up here, it's what are we collectively doing. So what are we all, there's capital that can be provided by all these different organizations. There's something called human capital. What are we individually doing? One of the things I do besides, these investigations is I go to the schools, I speak with these students. I speak to 10-year-olds, I speak to 11-year-olds. We all have life experiences. When you're walking down the street, you see a young individual, you say hi, or you walk by. These are the kinds of things that we, as do individually. I'm not here judging anyone. What I'm saying is that, this is our community. It's not the police department's community. It's not the prosecutor's community. It's our community. We all have a stake here. We have a working group called a stakeholders group, but you collectively are part of that group. And Captain Montalvo and other representatives from your building have been at these meetings. And so you are part of that group as well. And to the extent that you have human capital available to help us out with, we will accept anyone and everyone that wants to help. And so again, at the end of the night, you want to leave your name, your number, some contact information. Leave it. But again, this is our issue. This is collectively us. So we have to work together. Otherwise, if it's just left to law enforcement, we will have that cycle. For 5 more years, we'll see the next group. And we may not forward, collectively, communities are gonna take control of their communities.
We have two last questions, because we need to finish this at 8:30. And maybe a third one. Miss here with the mic, you have a question, and then she'll be next, and then we'll go to you.
I'm impressed with the range of activities that you're trying to engage these young people in. However, the worst underlying problem is something you've only mentioned indirectly, though someone in the audience did. Job training doesn't help if there aren't enough jobs. And the unemployment situation of young black people is a catastrophe. They have a rate much higher than the average during the Depression of the 30s. It isn't just low-wage jobs.
Keep it away, keep it away.
Yeah.
Okay, you can speak.
It's the lack of any jobs, and unfortunately, there's very little that you can do. But have you tried, or some people have tried pressing the mayor's office to have summer jobs programs, for example?
I mean, again, we're working with everyone, and anyone that has job opportunity, sure. If you know of an agency, city agency that's willing to offer jobs, you know, our office offers internships. So every year, I believe next month or so, we're gonna have 40 high school interns working with us. And the ages are 17 and 18.
They're rising juniors and seniors. So if you're a rising junior or a rising senior, you were able to apply for our programs, and we have selected a total of 40 interns that will start our office on July 7th.
I wonder if you could address the question of guns that Mr. Levine mentioned. Do you know how these young people are getting guns? Is there any way to stop the flow of guns? Right.
Yeah, NYPD has been aggressive in going after people, and we call them, and you guys seen them, where individual goes to a certain state where the gun laws are a little relaxed. Straw purchases, they buy these guns with the intention of bringing it back up north and basically put it in the hands of these young kids, which leads to the cycle of violence that we're seeing. Now, we've had numerous instances in different boroughs where we've been able to make successful arrests, but it is a very lucrative trade. And wherever there's money, and easy money, people are gonna follow it. So that is something that we continuously do, but you know, sometimes, like you said, it goes beyond just the local precinct, where you have areas in this country where a person could go buy a gun for $100, bring it north, and sell it for $600. That is just, you know, unfortunately, when you add the numbers up, that is a quick buck that a lot of people, unfortunately, in society where people their morals are so low that they're willing to do that, knowing the intentions that this is gonna lead to the type of stuff we're seeing. But we do have different programs, the gun buyback, and we've removed a lot of firearms in the gun buyback from these developments, where we've had people turning firearms, we've had parents find firearms, we've had people call us with the firearm is in like the young lady said, and the flower pot. I'm losing that right there. But we've been very aggressive in going after these type of situations, and like you said, it's a difficult challenge because the money to be made is there, and unfortunately, like with everything else we see, whether it be drugs or alcohol, when there's some money to be made, unfortunately, we do have people in our society that will stoop to those levels to make a quick buck. But we're out there and we're doing it, and we always reach out to the community. If you know where a gun is being stored, if you know someone that has a weapon, please let us know, and we're gonna go after it. Whether getting a warrant and executing a warrant and finding that gun, whether reaching out to the parents or whatever. We're going to do whatever we can to take that gun off the street. Because we understand the ramifications of any firearm, just one, and what the disastrous effects can be. So yeah.
Do you know how many were confiscated last week?
I think we took, there was the warrant, I believe we took 1 or 2 guns off. I don't have an exact number, that was done by gang, but I can get a number and let you know. So. But a lot of the times, what we've found is not that it's a lot of guns, it's that it's almost like a community gun, where there is a gun, it's hidden in a certain location, and if you need to get that gun, you get that gun, you use it, and you put it back. So it's almost called the community gun, you know, and that's what we've seen. We've seen on Facebook where they gave the guns Bertha, different names to the gun. It's the same gun that's being passed around. So that also becomes a situation where, you know, these kids, because of being afraid to be stopped by police officers, they were secreting guns around the different developments, and they would use someone to get the gun, whether it be a minor or a female, to get that gun and bring it to the person that's going to be the shooter. So you'd have the shooter, you'd have the person go get the gun and bring it to the shooter, and you know, those are the things that are happening. You know, so.
One last question.
Yes, years ago when my two sons were young and we lived in the village, there was a program that the police department locally instituted to get young children, I'm talking nursery school age, kindergarten, into the police department to meet the police. So the policeman was seen as a friend. They weren't seeing them as you guys are, I don't mean you personally, but as the enemy. And there was a trust that was built up so that the cop on the street was a friend, somebody you could go to, somebody you could talk to. Is there any effort being made in that direction in this community?
We have a program called the Explorer Program, where we take young people as young as 11 years old up to 18 age.
Younger.
Well, we do go visit schools. And I've personally gone with my youth officer, and we visited schools, and we've spoken to young people about a myriad of issues, whether it be gun violence, whether it be bullying, whether it be traffic safety, and the seductive lifestyle, getting into gang life. So we've gone and spoke to 4th and 5th graders about issues. So we continue to do that, and we go to different schools in the neighborhood. So that's one of the programs we do on top of the Explorer program. And then we do have different issues, different things that we do. One of the things that I am thinking of doing is closing down Old Broadway and making it a play street. And Old Broadway was that side street that these kids used to get at each other. So we wanted to do something positive, close it down, make it a play street where we can attract kids, and maybe some of these kids, before they get into different gangs, could meet each other, bond with each other. So if I knew you when I was 4, hopefully I'm not going to shoot at you when we're 12, to build that interaction. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do. But we got to get the street fixed, because it's pretty dented up, and you know, these kids would be a lot of broken ankles. But that's something you might see Old Broadway when we make it a play street in the summertime, and we can bring different people, not just basketball, but you know, different people do breeding and different things that we can bring. But those are some of the things that we're thinking of, and I love these ideas, and that's why we come out and talk about it.
I just want to say I'm a member of the board of directors here, but on behalf of the board, and I'm sure everybody here, we all join in this. We really appreciate your coming and making this connection.
I double that. I really appreciate it, because it shows a lot of concern, and the community really wanted to know what the officials were doing out there, and instead of just seeing flying helicopters around. I want to mention that the NYPD has a program called Guns for Cash. So, if anyone has a gun that's not licensed, whatever, just turn it in. And it takes more guns out of the street. I want to keep you guys informed with the 2-6 precinct community council meetings. Very, very interesting meeting. A lot of important people go there from the community. Commercial, Chase, H&R Block just joined, and it's good for you guys to find out, read the flyers that I put out in the lobbies, and take some time out. Take an hour out to join their meeting. It's really interesting, and they interact with the community. This is really a good town. A good town hall meeting, and it was well deserved. We really needed that information, and I really applaud them for coming here and us being part of the stakeholders as well, and the 2-6 precinct. So I really thank you so much for coming here. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Our meeting is every last Tuesday of the month, and usually we have it at Bruce Library right here on 125th Street. What I've been trying to do is move it around to different venues in the command, because to try to hit the lower part of the command, but traditionally, it's at Bruce Library, the last Tuesday of the month. It's 6:30. Please come by. Your thoughts, your questions, please. You know, we're not always going to agree, but you know, let's agree to get together and talk about it. And everything that's been said to me, I'm going to take back. I'm going to think about it, and whatever we can implement, we're going to do that. And if we can't, we're going to explain why. All right? Thank you.